Okay, watch this. Something good will happen if you use a skin like this. How do you learn rhythm slash reading? You can learn the rhythm of a map by memorizing it, and then if you've memorized enough patterns, then future patterns that you find will become, like, it'll become easier to recognize those patterns because you've memorized similar ones in the past. Rhythm in the sense of slow, old, low AR maps, not aiming too fast, not over tapping. Comes with, I think, memorization and just practice. What's a good example? Diddy Kong. Stuff like this, maybe? Like these angles and like these rhythms. Rhythms like these don't exist in modern maps, but they're actually kind of made up. So it just comes with like being able to. Okay, so here's how you realize this is okay. So by the time you've gotten to this section, you have played this slider already. This slider kind of goes to the song more intuitively than the green ones. But what this means, the fact that you've played the slider means that you already know how fast these sliders are going to be. You already know how fast these sliders are going to be because they're the same size as this one. So what that means is if we assume that it's a constant, like between each object is a 1-4 gap, basically that means like just single tap rhythm, then we can actually assume the rhythm of this section. Even though it doesn't really go to the song, if you pay close attention, like now that you've realized how fast the sliders go in this map, just looking at the objects will tell you the rhythm because you know the timing distance between each object and you also know how fast the sliders are. And then this gap is a little weird to read, but it goes exactly to the song, so that helps a lot. As far as like keeping your patience with cursor movement on patterns like these, it just comes with practice on the AR, because it's easy to like start moving your cursor too quickly, and then you just note lock the whole thing. Less listening really close to the song, more like learning what kind of map it is. Yeah, exactly. That's right. But also you have to listen to the song for stuff like this. You have to kind of know the song, or just knowing like some basic music theory helps. That okay, so if you know any music theory, I guess this will make a little more sense, but there are 2 beats between the end of this triple and then the start of this burst. So you can count 1, 2 in your head. Well, even if you don't know music theory, you can do that. Like you can count in your head, like if you're listening to the song. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. So I completely skipped 3, but just counting the beats in your head, well, you don't need to count in numbers. You just have to kind of like, I guess, understand that there's a metronome. The BPM of a song, that's what that is. It's that counting. And if you look at this pulsing of the Osu cookie, it's actually doing that. It's doing exactly what I was doing. Like if I go to the main menu even, notice how the cookie pulses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It counts at the BPM. When people say pay attention to the song, stuff like this is what's actually useful. Not just like listening to the lyrics or like whatever, but actually like paying attention to the rhythm and realizing like, hey, there's a full gap in rhythm here. It's like a full beat is missing. So like if you listen to it now, and it takes practice obviously, but you'll realize what the gap actually, like how long the gap actually is. Yeah, and this is the same gap in rhythm. So if you've memorized the first gap in rhythm, you can now do this one as well, because it's the same thing. Oh, and then the doubles like these, okay, this is where it gets interesting. But this goes perfectly to the song. So stuff like this is where you really have to listen to the song, because otherwise you won't be able to, it'll be harder. Like if you listen in slow motion. So this is actually a reflection of how the song goes. Okay, anyway. I hope that made sense. And that is my lesson on using the rhythm to help you read. Made sense? Okay, awesome. No problem. And then look at this guy. Look at this guy. Toy's so good. I mean, these guys are good too, but I don't know. I'm biased towards Toy. One last question. How do you approach mind blocks? Wanted to play all the hard stuff, but just spam through it. Oh, I see. Mind block. So what happens with mind block is that you actually are not reading the pattern anymore. What happens is that you just kind of assume how the pattern goes based on what you remember. And oftentimes that probably doesn't go that well. Okay, so let's say you're mind blocked on this square pattern. Like, let's say like whenever you used to play this as like a beginner OC player, you just spam through it. And so like nowadays when you play this pattern, you just kind of like, your brain turns off and you're just like, well, I hope I hit this pattern that I never used to hit. And so what you're actually doing is you're not reading the pattern anymore. Like if you were playing this map for the first time, you would read each object more naturally, like if you're sight reading, than if you already know the map. And what that means is that like, if you're sight reading this, you don't know how the pattern goes yet. So you just have to take it in as it comes. Like, let's say you're sight reading and you get to this point. So all you see is these 3 notes. When you're sight reading, you have to read the pattern because you don't know what the rest is going to be like. It could be like going down like this. Like it could be a sort of diamond shape, or it could be anything, but you don't know. So at this point in sight reading, you're just playing what you see. And then you see the next object and you're like, okay. So now you're like, okay, this is a square. And then you see the next object, but you actually don't know what it is. I mean, chances are you're not actually doing this because the map is going so fast. I mean, this is the speed of the map. But my point is that you don't know that it's a square and then another square when you're sight reading. But if you've played this map 200 times and you've just spammed through it, then you've trained yourself to just stop reading this pattern and you just spam through it. So the remedy for that would be you have to focus on the pattern again. Like you have to actually look at the pattern. And what helps with reading is just breaking down the pattern even more. Like there's this age-old advice that like instead of reading it as a square, read it as 2 1 2 jumps. So if you just force yourself to read it like this, it could actually help. Or even if you read it like this is actually the same exact spacing as the 2 squares. And if you're good at linear jumps like this, linear spacing, then maybe reading it like this is actually a lot better for you. It's the same thing. It might be 2 squares if you keep the original combos. Then yeah, it's new comboed as 2 squares, but it's actually whatever you read it to be. If you read it as like, you can read it as a triangle and then 1 2 and then another triangle. But that might be a little tricky. Oh, removing follow points actually helps as well. If you use a skin like this one, that just removes numbers and removes follow points. Like watch this. Then it's easier to just read it however you want. Like you can read it as like 1 2 and then linear 4 with the skin, because there's nothing, there are no colors or numbers or follow points to force you to read the pattern in a certain way. So if you use a skin like this for maps like these, it's a lot easier to just read the pattern however you want. So this could help with mind block, or just like being able to break down patterns in your head using any skin, even with like colors and all that. Nowadays, I usually read maps like these. On maps like these, my brain just shuts off and reverts back to the bad habit I picked up years ago. Yeah. Like what I was saying earlier with like turning your brain off because you're so used to just not being able to play this pattern. I mean, it's a very real thing, like mind block. Like we can't just say that mind block doesn't exist and just leave it at that, because I feel like that's what a lot of people say, especially top players that don't feel like answering your question. But mind block in reality is the result of you not reading the pattern anymore. Is it mandatory for mappers to break down patterns by new combos? Not really. I mean, you can't just have no new combos in the whole map, but there are mappers that get away with like not making a new combo for like a really long time and also not being consistent with new combos. and they just get away with it because it's like, oh well, that's how I want it to be, and then it's just like, oh okay. If you find a BN to rank your map, it doesn't matter what your map is like. Do you think it's viable to play tournaments even if you're not playing your best at the moment? Should you play tournaments only when you're at the peak of your skill? You're never gonna be at the peak of your skill. If you want to play tournaments, just play them. There's like nothing bad will happen if you place low in your first tournament. Like it actually doesn't matter. Do I think setting arbitrary goals, like I want to stream X BPM by the end of the year, are good? Yes, I think setting goals are good, even if it's like that. But the problem is you need to have some sort of direction with that goal. You can't just set a goal for yourself and just leave it at that. Let's do this. Okay, so let's say goal. Oh gosh. Okay, so we have this goal, and that's fine and all, but it's better to actually say, I want to stream X BPM by the end of the year by... Wait, okay, so let's say you want to be able to stream 200 BPM by the end of the year, and then you have to give yourself some sort of direction. So first, I think we should be more specific with our goal. So you can set a goal like, I want to be able to stream this BPM by the end of the year, but you need to be able to set milestones. You also need to be able to realize where you are now. Like, what defines being able to stream 200 BPM? Like, is it 9 notes? Is it 17 notes? Like, if you want to be able to do, like, there's this map. Which one is it? Which one is it? This one. 3,000 notes. If you consider 3,000 notes in a row as streaming that BPM, then you can set your goal to being able to stream 3,000 notes of 200 BPM by the end of the year and then how are we actually going to do that? So you just have to give yourself more direction. Like you have to be a little more clear with your goal. So let's say you're doing this in January. So you can say by the end of January, currently, you have to realize where are you right now. Let's say you can only do 50 notes. And okay, by 50 notes, let's say, so we'll just assume without running out of stamina. And then by the end of January, you want to be able to do like 150 notes. And then like blah, blah, blah. And then by the end of June, you want to be able to do like maybe 700. I don't even know. I don't know pacing when it comes to training stamina. Like 700, maybe like 1,000. And then by end of September, maybe, I don't freaking know. Just like whatever goals you want to set for yourself. Yeah, you need to be really specific with your goal. And so what we do then is you have to set milestones for yourself so you can have direction. And then from there, you have to be able to give like a method as to like how you're going to accomplish this. Like you can just say like, I want to be able to stream 150 notes of 200 by the end of January, but then what? Like you can say that and then what are you actually going to do to do that? You could try to like just spam this map forever until eventually you can do 150 notes. And that might work for you. And that's actually fine. If you can like gain stamina by just playing this map forever, then, I mean, if it works for you, then it works. If you're going to do that, like if you make this map set the only thing in your OSU song list and you just only play these maps to practice, it would actually work. I mean, you need to be able to warm up. I think it would be bad to like just straight up log on and play this. I think it's better to like warm up on maybe 170 or like even lower. You don't need to play these maps exactly. You can play Blue Zenith forever. The long stream maps are good for focusing on stream stamina. Yeah, I agree. Like with Blue Zenith, you have to also focus on the rhythm and you have to focus on aiming. But with those long stream practice maps, it lets you isolate the aspect of streaming completely. So it works well for just focusing on only stream stamina. So setting goals is a good thing, but you also need to have some sort of direction with those goals. You can't just like set the goal and then be like, okay, well, I feel like a common maybe fallacy that people fall into is that like they set a goal or like they think about productive things that they can do. And then as a result, they feel like they've done something productive already. And then they just continue being lazy. Like, let's say you plan out your entire day or like you plan out something that you're going to work on today. And you think about all the details of like what you're going to do. And then you're like, okay, well, I've been productive enough today. So then you just stop. Like you could plan out your goals as much as you want, but you also have to actually work towards it. How do you improve when you're too tired to play well? you can just like play whatever. You can focus on reading. I feel like you don't need to have that much energy to like play reading stuff. But if you're tired, I don't know, sleep better, take a nap. No, but you don't have to play every day if it's like if you're really not feeling like it. Tips on how to tap when streaming. Um, just make sure you're actually moving like one finger after another. Like I can try to stream like this. But like what the hell am I actually doing, right? Like you should try to move your fingers in like a back and forth motion. You don't even need to play a map to do this. Like I'm not playing a map to show this, but like just move your fingers back and forth and like just do it really slowly and focus only on like lifting one finger after another. And then actually just literally just look at your hand and look at the keys and try to realize, is there anything your hands are doing that they're actually not supposed to be doing? Let's say like you realize that you always like you don't actually stream but you actually gallop your fingers like this. Then try slowing your fingers down a little and just force yourself to tap in a smooth motion. I feel like the best way to train your tapping technique is not actually to like play stream maps. It's probably best practice outside of OSU because there you can actually focus on how your fingers are moving. But I don't know, it just comes with not just practice, but it comes with dedicated practice and isolation of what you're trying to improve. How to flow aim. Flow aim? I feel like flow aim is best practiced by watching your replay. So let's make a diff of this stream. How do you practice reading? Shoot, there's so many questions. Okay, I'll get to it in a sec. Oh yeah, if you want to know how to make a difficulty of like a section of a map that you want to play. So let me show this. So you go to the song in the song list and you open it in the editor, right click in the song list and then click on edit. Or you can just go to edit and then click on it. It takes you to the editor. Just go file, create a new difficulty. By default, once you click on that button, this difficulty name box will be selected, but just name it whatever and then click OK. And then you don't want to clear the objects, so press no. So let's say I want to make a difficulty of this stream, but I actually want to start it a little before. So if I drag on this bar, I'm highlighting the objects. So I can highlight a group of objects, and then if I right click on them, it'll delete the whole group. So see where my cursor is at the top? Hold left click on the timeline where you want the practice diff to start. I put my cursor right here, and then if I press the Z button on my keyboard, that's the shortcut to take me all the way to the start of the map. So I press Z, and it took me all the way to the start. And what that did is I've automatically highlighted everything up until the point where I want the map to start. So now when I press Z again, so Z takes you to the first object. So if I press Z, it now takes me to the object that I wanted the map to start on. So now I just press Ctrl S to save the map. Actually, if you want to cut off the ending as well, because now what we have is we have a difficulty that starts at the pattern you wanted it to start at, but then it goes all the way to the end of the map. So if you want to do the same thing for the rest of the map, you can go, let's say I just only want to play the stream. So then I do the same thing, but you press the V button. Press the V button, that takes you to the last object, and you can just do the same thing, and now save. And now if I press Z, it takes me to this little slider section. If I press V, it takes me just to the end of this stream. And that's the only thing in this difficulty. So that's how you make practice diffs. So now we have this. Okay, so to demonstrate flow aim, so I'm just going to play the stream and probably not hit it, I assume. Oh, shoot. What the hell? What am I doing? Okay, I ended up missing the very end. So now what I'm going to do, if I watch the replay... Wait, is the skin right on my overlay? Shoot, it's not. So let's just skip. If I watch this in slow motion, and I track my cursor. Okay, so my cursor did go over. Shoot, okay, actually, I'm gonna make a clip. So I can slow it down. Oh, wait, it broke. Oh, crap. Wait. Because sometimes the issue is not actually with your aim, but your tapping. So you have to pay attention to... You have to like watch it in slow motion and figure out what you did wrong. Okay. Speed. So slow it down. Oh, such slow motion. So I missed this note, and we can watch the key overlay to see what actually happened. Oh, I can actually full screen it. Okay. So tap 11 just happened. So you should count the numbers and then see which tap was supposed to be this circle, and then where was your cursor when that happened? Okay, so 8, hit 8 is this circle, and 17, 9, 18, 10, 19, 11. Okay, so hit 11 was this 6. But notice I just clicked on the circle, but my cursor was already almost off it. And now hit 20 is supposed to be 7, but let's see where my cursor was. Okay, so now my cursor has already passed this circle, but I still haven't done click 20 yet. Oh, there it is. So then as a result, you see like, oh, I aimed too quickly at the end. It's not just like, oh, I misaimed and no locked. I mean, you can think that and then just play the map again, but only if you watch your replay like this and pay attention to your cursor and your taps, can you really like pinpoint how did I actually mess up. So then I ended up note locking this object as a result. And then this 12 hit was supposed to be this 8, but my cursor was already way off. And then by the time I got to this object, I realized, hey, I just freaking missed. So then I stopped. What is note lock? Okay, that's actually a good question. So note lock is, so basically you're supposed to click objects in the order that they're supposed to be played. And that makes sense, right? But what happens is if you try to play an object during the hit window of a previous object, it's not going to let you click on it. And instead the circle will shake. So what that means is, okay, so I clicked this 6, and then my cursor went straight over this circle. I ended up not clicking on the 7. And so what happened is the game still assumes, hey, you're supposed to click this one next. But I completely missed it. And so what happens is when I went to click on the 8, it didn't let me tap it at all, even though my cursor was actually on the 8 when I did a tap. Like I did a tap on my keyboard and my cursor was on the 8, but it didn't let me click on it because I was supposed to be clicking the 7. And so as a result, the note got locked, and that's what note lock is. So if you watch in slow motion, the 8 is gonna wiggle. It completely shook, and that's because the note was locked. The note was locked because I was supposed to be playing the 7, but I wasn't. Do I have a hand stretch routine? Not really. I just like, I don't know, sometimes I stretch my hands. Or like, not really stretch, but like just push my arm out and like put my hand up and down like this. But yeah, so that's what note lock is. So you can say like, oh, I note locked this stream. Why is it added in OSU? It's a really old mechanic from the days where like maps were not this complicated. Like if you take a look at the very first map in the game, just go Prince. So let's look at this map. Oh, and by the way, what I'm doing, so in order to go to the editor, I right click on the little panel of the song, and then if you press the 5 button, you go to the editor. But I'm just doing it so quickly, like you just right click and then press 5. So before the panel's even loaded, I just press 5. So that's what I'm doing to get to the editor. Okay, so let's just take a look at this masterpiece. I mean, this is like this simplicity of like early mapping, but like let's try playing the map, and then let's try playing it out of order. So if I skip this, okay, no, okay, let me clip that and then show in slow motion what actually happens. Oh, how do you dim the editor? Okay, good question. It's in view. And then dim background. And then it dims the background when you're testing the map. The thing is that if the hit window for this object has passed, then it's not going to note lock. Okay, slow down. So this is further explanation of note lock. So see, there are 2 notes here, but I only clicked on the first one, and then watch what happens. So when I try to play the 4, it locks me out of the note because it wants me to click the 3 first. Okay, so I tried clicking on the 4, and then it didn't let me because it wanted me to click on the 3. But now I'm going to the 5. So I haven't clicked the 4 yet. And now I'm going to the 5 already. But now the game is like, hey, you're supposed to click on the 4 next now. So once I try clicking on the 5, it locks me out of that one too. So if you're playing a long stream, this chain will keep happening through every single object. So what happens when people say they note locked a whole stream? It means that this chain effect kept happening on every single object, and then they ended up missing the whole thing. I want to show it again. Yep. Awesome game mechanic. A lot of people wish that this mechanic didn't exist, and I think it's removed in Osu Laser. What happened here is that note lock happened. Okay. So yeah, with training flow aim, it's all about like watching your replay, as I was doing earlier. Okay, let me switch back to full screen. Full screen prevents lag. Actually, if you don't have full screen on, it even tells you running without full screen mode will increase your input latency. Input latency just means lag. Fancy way of saying lag. Oh, Footloose. Wait, Jensen changed his avatar to this one. Oh my god, that's so good. Jensen is a friend of mine. Not C9 Jensen. Such a classic avatar. Yoshi, you asked... Wait, did you ask how to practice reading? It comes with, like, familiarizing yourself with patterns. Okay, so let's say this pattern I just couldn't read. It's just so awkward. It's so hard. Like, what the heck? And so what I end up doing when I play this map is I memorize it. So let's say I was trying to FC this map and I just memorized this pattern. And then let's say I see this pattern again in a future map. Now I've already memorized this same kind of pattern from Footloose. So Footloose is this song. So now if I see this pattern in a future map, then I will kind of know how to play it already. Why does that pattern exist? It's actually pretty good. It's pretty cool. This map is good. It's a good map. But yeah, if you memorize enough patterns, what will end up happening is you become familiar with like so many patterns that you can just recognize almost every pattern in the game. And if you just keep doing that, but there's that method of training reading, but I mean you can do that as much as you want, but there's also the factor of like actually breaking down an object in your head to train reading, because like you could ask like, okay, but what if I've never seen a pattern before? How do I still hit it properly? And it comes with training your ability to like break down objects in your head. You can memorize every pattern in the game, but still not be able to sight read Dumb Surfer with hidden. True. Okay, let's look at Dumb Surfer. This map is AR5. But actually the objects perfectly go to the song. It's just a matter of it's a matter of knowing how many times to tap before moving your cursor. Yeah, so I think this is a good example. So let's look at this pattern. So it just comes with breaking down the pattern in your head while you play it. So you could try to look at all the numbers, and that's fine and all. And that definitely helps a lot, but let's say like you have no numbers in your skin. Well, what do we have here? We have 2 approach circles, and then another 2 approach circles, and then there's one here. But actually, there's another one hidden. You have to make sure you're not blinding yourself to hidden objects. So you might be quick to just like play in a straight line, and then you realize, and that only at this point, after the 4 fades out, do you realize like, oh, I'll get to hidden later. But for now, but for hidden, it's just like looking at numbers. With hidden, you can read the numbers, and it's fine. You can read the numbers, and you can listen to the song, and you can memorize the fade out timing. Like let's watch the map with hidden. Actually, I'm gonna make a difficulty of like this starting here. So let's watch it with hidden. In slow motion. Oh, actually. Okay, so when you watch with auto keeps its cursor in the very middle of objects. But actually, the strat for stuff like this is actually to not center your cursor. Because look what happens. You can actually read the numbers. Well, not if there's 100 blocking it. This skin has small 100s. Okay. So you can count the objects because you can see the numbers fading. People who play no number skin. Okay, well, look. Let's use a skin with no nothing. No colors, no numbers, no anything. And let's try to figure out what we can do. Okay, watch this. Something good will happen if you use a skin like this. You can't really do anything. It's not that bad with hidden because the rhythm is good. The rhythm goes exactly to the song. You can just listen to the lyrics. If you're just tapping to the song, you will probably get it right. But if you're unable to listen to music, then you can just look at the numbers. Move your cursor off of the center so that your cursor is not blocking the numbers. Oh, another good example. Self-control. Let's look at this map. The intro is wild. Let's try this. I mean, I know the rhythm already, but like... If you don't have numbers, that's what's gonna happen. Like, what are you supposed to do? But even if you do have numbers... I mean, I'm kind of faking it because I already know the rhythm, but... My point is that you can't read... like, there's some patterns you actually, like... Just look in the editor and realize what the rhythm is. So you can watch and you can look at the timeline at the top and kind of get a feel for like how many objects are there before each gap. But actually, if you look at this and you've memorized it, then you actually realize that it goes exactly to the song. If I turn off the hit sounds and play it in slow motion, watch this. Another good example is Night of Nights. Not this one. This one. So, I mean, this section is not stacked, but let's look at this section. But actually, if you pay attention to the song, it's actually, the beats are actually exactly to the song. Here, let me increase the timeline zoom with the button on the left. And then slow it down. Like, this gap in rhythm is really awkward, but it's just straight up in the song. Like, I have the hit sounds completely off, so this is just exactly what the song is like. So when people say, like, listen to the song to figure out rhythm, this is kind of what they mean. Like, if you just tap to the beats in the song, you'll end up getting it right. And if you notice, like, if you feel like if whether or not a note is stacked is random, what it actually is every time there's a gap, that's when you're supposed to move your cursor. Like, see, there's a gap here and there's a gap here. But when there are consecutive notes, that's when it's stacked. So like this is a stack of 5 and a stack of 2 and a stack of 2. It's like that. And actually, if you notice again, it repeats. The rhythm actually completely repeats. Like, it's this whole like... Oh, I bet actually we've gotten to like the end of this musical phrase. So then it like has a little transition. And if you notice, actually the spacing is different here now because it's like a sort of transitional section. And then it just repeats the same rhythm. So if you've memorized the rhythm in like the very start, if you've memorized this, if you've memorized this whole like section, then you've actually memorized the rhythm for like everything here. Like if I just scroll through, you've actually memorized the rhythm for everything. It just repeats. Actually, except this. This doesn't repeat. It's a whole stream. My point is that the rhythm repeats a lot. And that's just a thing with music, is that rhythms repeat. Like, they just do. Songs repeat rhythm. So if you learn the rhythm for like the starting section, then you'll be good for the rest of it, even if it's perfectly stacked. And perfectly stacked is just what we were looking at. What perfectly stacked means is that like the objects are exactly one on top of another. So yeah, that is perfect stacks. Perfect stacks and reading rhythm. But yeah, was there anything else about reading? Reading is like similar to what I was doing earlier when I was looking at Rainbow Dash Like Squirrels, that map. It's just about breaking down patterns in your head to be more digestible and easier to read, so that even if you're sight reading, you'll be able to read it in one try, hopefully. Advice on triples while alternating. So from the perspective of a single tapper, alternating is a combination of starting everything with key 1 and starting everything with key 2. So like if you single tap with your index finger and play like this, like triples, or if you single tap with your middle finger and play triples like this, either way, like when you fully alternate, you have to be able to do both. And so let's say, because like at least let's use me as an example, I single tap with my index finger. So when I play triples, naturally I do this. Like I use my index finger twice. So when I was learning how to perfectly alternate, I didn't really do it by like full alternating at first. At first, that's not what I did. What I did is I learned how to single tap with my middle finger. And then once I felt comfortable with that, then I started combining the two. So maps with like a few triples and slow rhythm helped a lot. Senya is an artist. There are a lot of maps by this artist. This map actually I used a lot, and I give it to people to, like when I give this advice, because this map I think works really, really well. Yeah, this map is really good for trading this, because if you look at the map, it's, wait, what's the BPM? 126. Yeah, if you can't like fully alt and you can't figure out why, and you're a single tapper, it's probably because like you can't single tap with the other finger. Is it worth to learn how to single tap? It can be useful to know how to single tap, but you won't really have, like if you full alt forever, you'll be fine. If you single tap forever, you'll probably run into problems. Like actually, yeah, some people learn the game like full alternating, and they force themselves to like not repeat a key from like the very beginning. Yeah, I mean, if all you do is alt, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But even if you full alt, there might be like a natural tendency for you to start triples with one finger, or start patterns or streams with one finger. Like you might have this natural tendency that like, yeah, you full alt, but you actually always start triples with the same finger. And it actually might be something that you've never realized. And so that like just forcing yourself to learn how to single tap with your other finger that you don't start patterns on might actually help a lot. But yeah, this map has a lot of like single taps and like a few bursts in between, like but only up to 5 notes. And actually, I used this map to train like single tapping with my middle finger, and it actually hurt my brain so much. Like trying to play this pattern starting on my middle finger, it was just mind-boggling. Like I just couldn't. Like I would just like try to start it with my middle finger, but then my index finger would naturally go down, and then I just like, wait, crap, I used the wrong finger. But it just takes practice. This map is really nice for training finger control with both fingers, or single tapping with both fingers, starting patterns. Just anything with bursts work. I mean, you don't have to only play this map. Just anything that, I mean, the map being slow tends to help a lot. Like, even something like this. Or like, it doesn't need to be by this artist. But like the faster the map is, the harder it is to just isolate and just focus only on starting patterns with your other finger. But yeah, once you get comfortable with starting patterns with either finger, then you'll notice it's actually so much easier to full alt. Like you won't even need to train full alt that much after you practice that. Once you're able to start any pattern with any finger, then it's just a matter of doing it like in, I guess, like one after another, one finger after another. I have a weird thing. I only finger lock my middle finger, so streams suck. Oh yeah, learning to start patterns with your other finger is the way. Don't want to learn a new tapping style. Well, you don't have to switch your style completely. It's not really training a new tapping style. I mean, it is, but it's actually training your finger independence. It's using the new tapping style to train your finger independence. And then once you feel comfortable with it, you can just go back to your normal style. Tap with your right finger, but always start with the left. Annoying. Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's actually just really useful. Even if you don't plan on full alternating, There are some times, what's a good example? Let's freaking Gara. So, okay, look at these sliders. It's kind of hard to single tap these. So even if you're a single tapper, naturally you'll probably switch fingers on each one. So there are patterns like these. Okay, so let's do this. Let's make up a pattern. Let's assume that there is a stream here. So let's assume there's just a stream, straight up. Okay, so my point with all this is even if you main single tap, let's say you're playing this pattern. Let's track which finger you would use. Let's say you hit every one object with your index finger, with key 1, and then you hit every 2 object with your other finger. If you're full alternating, then what ends up happening sometimes, you hit this 1 with key 1, and then you try using key 2 for the next object, but actually it's a stream. So now you've actually started a stream with your other finger, and if you're not comfortable starting streams with your other finger, it can actually mess you up a lot. Even if you fully single tap and you don't really plan on alternating ever, it's still good to be able to start patterns with any finger, even if you single tap, because you'll run into problems when you're sight reading. Gara, MP3 edit into painters. That's a good idea. Someone should make that. You have the ki of Gara, and then it just goes to painters. Wait, where's the ending? Just goes from Gara to this. You just got painters.